everyone, Bandit here. Welcome back to the Bandit Flight Simmer channel. Today we're doing another episode of our series of flying the Diamond DA-62 around the world. We're starting off today in Macau, and we're going to be heading northeast up to Okinawa, Japan. And it's going to take us over Hong Kong and Taiwan. It's a beautiful day, gorgeous weather. Couldn't have a better day for flying. It's early in the morning in Macau here, and I'll just show you the route real quick here. So we are taking off out of Macau. We're going to be flying over Hong Kong, picking up this airway up over Taiwan, and then we're going to pick up the southern tip of the Japanese islands here, and we're going to finish up in Okinawa, Japan. I'm going to follow departure. I want to pick up this airway here, but there's no departure that links up to this airway, so we're going to follow this departure which crosses over the airway. And I assume the clearance will be something like you're cleared the Conga 2 Alpha to intercept the Gulf 581 airway to Magog. And you see how the airway continues out here and then it doubles back to the start of this airway for the departure, I mean. And it's pretty much set up the same way in the GPS. So let's hop in the airplane. I'll just show you the flight plan here. It's the same way, so we have the departure, it goes all the way out here, doubles back to the start of the airway, and we're going to actually transition from the departure to the airway at this point here. So we'll go over that when we get there. So the departure is, just load it up real quick here, we'll have a look. And so it's going to be climbing on a heading on a track of 359 to 400 feet, right turn direct to La Top, and then we're going to follow these airways. The top climb is 6,000 feet, so that's what we have set, and then we're going to continue out here. There's Hong Kong. We're going to fly right over the island of Hong Kong, and then we'll head out here and we'll pick up our, just past TD here, we're going to pick up our airway and make the transition to there, and then eventually we'll climb up to 9,000 feet for the remainder of the route. Okay, so let's do a pre-takeoff check and get up on our way. I already got the airplane all started up. I got the route loaded. Just save some time here. So quick pre-takeoff check. Fuel is good. Trims are set. Flaps are set for takeoff. And we got our boost pumps on. We got our GPS set up and 6,000 feet for our altitude. Runway heading is set and lights are good. Okay, so we'll release the parking brake, apply full power. I'll just set toga. Sorry. There we go, release the parking brake. And T's and P's are good, airspeed's alive. There's 80 knots, rotate. Pause rate. Gear is up. Speed's good. Flaps up. The autopilot.
Engaging
Put
autopilot.
flight level change. 10 knots. We'll activate nav. So GPS, autopilot's armed with GPS, flight level change, 110 knots. Just picking up our nav track. And we'll continue on to departure. There's the city Macau. And then recently, when I went to Macau years ago, this causeway wasn't open, so we had to take a ferry to Macau from Hong Kong. But now you can drive to all the way to Macau from Hong Kong. We'll take a look at that once we get a little bit further out. Actually, let's hop outside right now and take a look. So you see this bridge goes all the way towards Hong Kong in the distance. There's a couple spots where ships can go through. I think it transitions to tunnels. Hong Kong Airport's over here.
November Delta Tango, leaving my airspace frequency change approved.
Oh, disable the auto ATC here.
Tower Diamond Charlie, Bravo November Delta Tango frequency change.
And off we go. You can see Macao Airport there. They have the main runway just built on the reclaimed land there, made for the runway there, and then they have these two causeway taxiways that head out to the main terminal. Interesting airport. And Hong Kong Airport is very similar, except it's much bigger. They reclaimed a whole bunch of land here and they built the whole airport. And you can see the causeway goes all the way over to Hong Kong, just comes out near the airport there, I think. Okay, so we'll continue on departure here. I'm going to bring back to my climb power. 25%. Continuing up to 6,000 feet. And that'll be a good altitude for flying over Hong Kong. We should get a great view of the city there. So I'll put my transponder on. You can see some traffic in the area here. I'm just using real world traffic. Okay, I'll check in with you a little further along the departure here once we get up closer to Hong Kong Airport. We'll take a look at Hong Kong International Airport. And we'll get some good views of the city of Hong Kong. Before I go though, it's been a while since I did a video. I had an interesting little experience, and I spent the last week redoing my computer. I had some memory management issues or something, and eventually I couldn't get the computer to boot up, and I tried for a couple of days to repair it and couldn't get it going, so I basically had to do a fresh install of Windows and install everything back on the computer, so that was pretty time consuming, so that's why I haven't done a video lately. But I got everything back up and running. It's all running pretty smooth now, so hopefully don't have any more problems in the future. Haven't had any of those memory management issues, so everything seems to be running pretty smooth. Okay, so I'll check in with you a little further down the departure here, and we'll have a look at Hong Kong International Airport as we fly by that. See you in a few minutes. Okay, we have our cruise power set 75%. The landing lights off. And we're still on the departure here. We're just coming up the beam Hong Kong International Airport. Just maintaining 6,000 feet for now, because that's the published altitude for Lima Kilo Charlie here. And we can take a look out to the right here. Just head outside here, and there's, you can see Hong Kong Airport. And that's all reclaimed land they made there, and then built the entire airport right here. So it's quite an engineering feat. You can see where the causeway comes in from Macau over here. And then Hong Kong Island is over here, so we're going to continue on the departure up through the harbor here. And this is mainland China over here. So we got our power set. If I go to the engine page and look at the lean page here, they have it set up with our fuel. So based on our current power setting, we have endurance of 5.6 hours, estimated range is 927 miles, and the whole trip was just under, it was about 880 miles, I think, so we've already covered a bit of distance, so that looks good. If I set 85, you can see how much range we lose. So if I bring it up to 85%, that's like a high power cruise. And that takes us down to 815, so We need to, I think normal cruise for this aircraft is 75. And I think you can even lean it out a bit further if you went down to 65. We can bring that range up quite a bit. So 65 would probably be around a long range cruise. And look, we can take it well over 1,000 miles. Bring it back up to 75, and that's a pretty good cruise. Speed for the fuel burn, and then that's going to be above our range trip today. So I'm going to use 75%. You can come up and see the Macao Island just coming up ahead of us here. And it's just up here via Tango Delta VOR that we're going to make that transition to the Airway. So we can hop outside here and have a look. I was fortunate enough to visit Hong Kong years ago. My sister lived here for a while. It's been a long time since I've been there. This airport, Hong Kong International, was a fairly new airport back then. But before that, they used to have an airport. You can see the remnants of it right here. That was the main airport for Hong Kong, and it had what was one of the most interesting arrivals. You had to fly an ILS approach towards this hill, and then it had a big checkerboard on the hill here, and then you flew what was called the checkerboard approach. So you had to be visual before you hit the checkerboard visually, and then you did a visual segment to make the turn onto final to Hong Kong. It's one of the most interesting approaches in the world at the time. Unfortunately, you can't do that anymore. Beautiful scenery and reflections. I don't think it's photogrammetry scenery here. I do have a mod from flightsim.to that adds some more buildings into the Hong Kong area here, but it's not photogrammetry cities like some of the cities in North America and Europe. So it's not as much detail, but it's still pretty well depicted here, I think. Especially from this altitude, looks pretty good. It's interesting, there's no bridges going over the harbor here. I think it's allows ships and stuff to move through more freely. There's at least a few tunnels that I know of, but yeah, there's actually no bridges between Kowloon and Hong Kong here. Yeah, very interesting place to visit. So back in the cockpit here, once we get up to Tango Delta, then we'll start looking at making our transition. So all I'm going to do is activate the Airway from Charlie Hotel VOR to Magog, and I'll do that. So I'll select heading select when we get to TD here, and then we'll just fly right into that airway and activate that airway. So it's a fairly easy transition. Outside while we're here and get another view of the city. Yeah, I don't think the detail, especially along the harbor front here, I don't think there's that much construction going on. Not too bad detail for basically a non-photogrammetry city here. Hopefully they'll do a world update in this part of the world one day, and we'll get a better depiction of Hong Kong. Okay, so we'll get back in here as we come up to our if I range out here, you can see the mess. So the airway would take you quite far out here. I could have linked it up here to Glado, but I wanted to kind of cut some distance off the trip here instead of going all the way out here and then out here and then up this way. So it'll save a few track miles by going this way. And plus I want to stay closer to shore in case there's any issues. If we have any problems with the aircraft, I don't want to be too far offshore. So we'll range out here. We're coming up to, this is the airway we want to intercept, so I will open up the flight plan and I will go down, select cursor, and I'm going to cursor to Magog. And that's the airway I want to activate from CH to Magog. So CH to Magog. And I'll select menu. And then put it in heading select here first. We'll just maintain our heading. So we're just on heading. So the heading is on. And then I'll just activate that airway. Activate leg to Magog. And then now you see it becomes active. So now we're just fly into that airway and intercept that airway. So I'll activate nav. So we have our CH Magog leg is active. We're in heading mode right now. So if I activate nav, should arm GPS, and as soon as we get on that airway, we should track that airway up. So that's going to save us a lot of track miles twice I have it to go all the way out to that end of that departure and then picking up the airway further out. Okay, we're heading eastbound, and when I look at the airway in the chart here, it says the minimum altitude for this airway is 9,000 feet, so I would request to climb to 9,000. So we'll go 9,000 feet. We'll flight level change, dial our speed back to 110, and climb out to 9,000 feet. And I'll bring our power up to 95% for the climb. Well, that was a great departure. We got to see Hong Kong there. You see it off in the distance there still. Got to depart out of Macau. Great weather. And I think we're going to have good weather. Probably just some broken cloud. Nothing worse than this. What we see here right now for the rest of the trip should be beautiful all the way to Okinawa. Oh, actually wanted 9,000. Set the correct altitude there before we capture it. When I zoom out the whole route here, 1,000 feet to go. You can see there's lots of waypoints we're going to pass on this route as we do this airway. Nice thing is loading airways in here is really simple now. So when you go from like Magog up to APU, I think was one airway Alpha 1, and it loads all these waypoints in for you. So it's just saves a lot of time loading up this stuff. Okay, leveling off at 9,000 feet. Luckily we got a little bit of a tailwind here. We'll start bringing the power back as we accelerate. Set 75%. Okay, the power's set. So we've used 6.5 gallons so far. We got about 80 gallons left. Still over 900 mile range. Whoops. Flap there might have been a mistake. Okay, so we'll let the speed build up. We've got a nice little tailwind of 16 knots. Ground speed's coming up nicely. Okay, so we got a long way to go over our water. I'll check in with you now once we get further down route here, and we'll have a look at Taiwan as we fly by Taiwan. And hopefully we will be clear of the cloud. If we're not, we can always descend down, request a lower altitude as we fly over Taiwan, just have a look. Okay, so I'll see you there probably a good hour and a half till we hit Taiwan, so I'll see you further down route here. Hey everyone, we're just coming up to the island of Taiwan. We're still at 9,000 feet, cruising along here nicely. We've been kind of skirting this broken layer here. Look out the window, you can kind of see down through, see the water a little bit, so we're just kind of at the bottom of it. So I'd like to see something when we fly by Taiwan here, so I would request 5,000 feet is the minimum altitude for the next airway, or the airway that we're on right now, all the way up to Alpha Papa Uniform here. So in order to see a little bit more of the island, I would just request that. So let's say we were cleared to 5,000. So like all on 5,000. Just vertical speed it down, 1,000 feet per minute. And I'll just keep the power setting at our cruise power there. We'll let the speed build up in the descent here. And we'll look at our fuel. So we're down to just under 10 gallons a side. We've got 18 in the aux still. So we can probably start thinking about transferring that. Okay, the lean here. Still got lots of range, lots of endurance. Still getting a good ground speed here. So, well, just because we're going fast in the descent here, but we got a good tailwind. Hopefully that sticks with us. We'll hopefully break out of the cloud here. So I might as well start my fuel transfer. And we got the left and right aux pumps are on. And then we'll let that fuel in the main tanks build back up. Okay, so I'm pretty sure we're starting to break out of the cloud here now. So it'll be nice as we come up over the northern part of the island of Taiwan. And Taipei is right up in this area here, so we'll make a turn around Taipei. We should get a good view of the city of Taipei. So clear the cloud now. And so we'll cruise at 5,000 for the next little while, and I'll check in with you as we get a little closer to Taipei. We'll see some of the sights of the city of Taipei as we go by Taiwan. See you in a little bit. Okay, we're leveled off at 5,000 for a little bit now, and the weather is pretty good. We're well below the broken layer. Just heading up to the northern tip of Taiwan, up straight ahead here. I didn't realize that Taiwan was so mountainous. The min sector altitudes, if you look to the right there, you can see the mountains going right up into the clouds. And if you look at the sector altitudes on the chart, they go up they have safety altitudes of 15,000 feet along here. So just as a reminder, if you see terrain, you can go into the relative terrain mode here, and you can see terrain relative to us. So right now, the route that we're flying, we're okay at this altitude. We're not going to encounter any terrain, but as you get closer, you're going to run into the green, yellow, and then obviously the red. So the red, we'd be flying right into the terrain. And if you want to look at the legend here, so green is 1,000 to 2,000 below us. Black is more than 2,000 below us. Yellow is between 500 and 1,000 below us, and red is from 500 feet below us up to above our altitude. So very useful information. So that's always available if you need it. I usually keep that on the insert map over here. I can just range out and just keep that as a reference. So I'll go back to just go off for no relative terrain, or you can go back to the regular topo map that they have as part of the NXI here. And they have a range, shows roughly the altitudes here, so you can see we're getting up to the above 10,000 foot range here with these mountains. So pretty interesting. Fuel transfer is going well. We got 3 pounds left in the aux tank. Although we did lose a lot of tailwind here. Actually, we're into a little headwind component, so I have to climb up to 6,000 feet. I'll go back up to 9,000 feet once we get by APU here, and we will hopefully get that tailwind back because it's affected our range a little bit, but we're still good for the gas. We go back to the engine page here, look at the fuel, and we've still got 540 miles and 3.5 hours of range left, so I think we're going to be pretty good. But it'd be nice to get back up and get that tailwind back. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. We're going to end our fuel transfer here momentarily, and I'll check in with you again. Hopefully we'll stay below this cloud all the way up till we get to Taipei, and we'll have a look at that city, and then we'll continue on to Japan from there. I'll see you when we get to Taipei in a few minutes. Okay, we're coming up on the city of Taipei, and unfortunately it doesn't look like there's too much for city detail in this area here. We just have the standard Microsoft Flight Simulator block buildings in various locations. Taipei International Airport is over here. I'll just hop outside so we can have a look at it. So that would be the international airport there. It doesn't look terribly detailed. I think that's an airbase right there. So not a lot of detail. The main city of Taipei is up here, and I don't see a lot of detail as we get close to that either. So unfortunately, not a lot of great detail in this part of the world. But once we get to Japan, Japan's had a world update, so we should see a lot more detail when we get into that area of the world. Okay, so I do have to hop back in the airplane here, and the next airway requires me to climb up to 6,000 feet, and I think that's going to get us back in this cloud. And right now we're looking at 11 knot tailwind, so I'm going to climb back up to 9,000 feet, and at least anyway, and hopefully we'll pick up back up some tailwind from there. But that's going to get us into the cloud, but then we're right back over the water for quite a ways till we hit the southern part of the Japanese islands up here via Mike Julia Charlie. Okay, so I might as well start that now. So I'd request 9,000 feet. Dial that in. Little flight level change. Bring the speed back. And then bring the power up for the climb. So we're climbing along pretty good. We'll be back above 6,000 feet for that next airway. Looks like we're going to get back in the cloud here. And we'll be stopping our fuel transfer momentarily. So I'll check in with you again as we get closer, a little further along the route here. We'll see how things look for the weather, and we'll talk about what we're going to set up for our approach into Okinawa. Okay, so I'll see you in a little bit. Okay, we are level at 9,000 and we are closer to the city, downtown city of Taipei. There is a little bit more detail here, but definitely not to the level of photogrammetry that you'd see in a lot of cities in Europe and North America. Anyway, we're just kind of in and out of this broken layer of cloud. And we did get our tailwind back 24 knots, so that's great. And now we're going to make the turn off to the Japanese islands. Fuel transfer is almost done. Still got a little bit left in the 1 ox tank. Okay, so I'll check in with you when we get closer to Japan. Okay, we're coming up to our first Japanese island, and I'm probably going to butcher this pronunciation, but Macao, I think. Pretty small island, southern chain of Japanese islands here. It's very built up though. Just hop outside and have a little look. So it's just these two islands. They have a nice airport right here. The town looks like lots of farmland. I don't think there's a part of this island that's not being used. Another airport over here. Nice size city over here. That looks very interesting. So here we are on the Navgraph chart. We're just got our last leg to go up to Okinawa. So probably in about another hour and a bit. And what I'll do is I'll get a little closer here. I'll go over the approach we're going to shoot into Okinawa Airport. It's called the airport is called, let me just look it up here real quick. Naha, Japan. It's an international airport on the island of Okinawa. Okay, so I'll check in with you when we get a little closer. We'll get set up for our approach and arrival into the island of Okinawa. See you in a little bit. Okay, we're about 75 miles back from Okinawa. So let's go over the approach we're going to fly. So we're coming in on the airway here. We're going to cross over a waypoint called Alval. And there's an ILS approach that has an initial approach fix at Alval as well. So that's what we'll load up, and then we'll do a 15 DME arc onto the ILS runway 36 right. So we'll load that in first and then see how it looks. So we go down to the GPS, we'll go to procedure, select approach. We want the ILS X-ray 36 right. Right there. And we want the all-valve transition. Minimums, you can throw it in, we're not going to need it, it's good weather. But it is 292, so we can put it on there and put in, say, 300 feet. And then we'll just go down and check out the waypoints. So all of vigor. Yeah, that looks all good. And we'll just load the approach for now. And this says not approved for GPS guidance. That's because we're doing an ILS. GPS guidance for monitoring only. So we'll accept that. And then you can see the approach loaded in there. So it's going to go from Olive on the arc in for the ILS. So once we get cleared for the approach, because our track is going to take us from Dodge to Olive right to the VOR. So we will have to, prior to Olive, we'll have to activate the approach. We can do that anytime. And we have, let's just take a look at the altitudes. So for the approach, they just have predicted. So vigor is at 4,400 feet, 2,000. So we'll set 2,000, which will be where we intercept our glide path, and then we'll just use VNAV to descend down. And you look at the approach here, it comes in via Olive. We haven't activated it yet, but comes in on the arc and then takes a track inbound where we'll transition to ILS. And then the missed approach is taking the arc outbound and coming out here to hold. So it looks kind of messy right there, but that's pretty much what we're expecting to do. So what I'll do is when we get a little bit closer, so I'll just brief the approach here real quick. It's visual, but we're going to use this to get ourselves in. So 110.3 is going to be our frequency. Course is going to be 102 inbound. We're going to intercept the glide path from 2,000 feet and 3-degree glide path down to a decision altitude of 292, runway elevations 9 feet. An event of missed approach. It's climbed to 1,200 feet on heading 002, then at 2.4 DME from the VOR, left turn outbound the 341 to 15 DME. So left turn outbound to 341 to 15 DME, arc out to Olval, and then hold as published. And that would be climbing to 2,000 feet. So that's the full approach, but it is visual, so we're just going to use this as guidance to get into the airport. So that's all loaded, that's brief, that's ready to go. As soon as we get cleared for the approach, we can activate it, and I'll set 2,000, and then we will just use VNAV, and you can see our first target altitude is this Vigor at 4,400 feet. And you can see Vigor here at 4,400 feet. And then we go down to 2,000 feet for DG, and then from there we'll intercept the glide path. We'll go down to 1,300, but we'll just intercept it from there. Make sure our frequency is in thing 110.3 is loaded in there, so it should make the transition. So I'll check in. One more thing, we can just check the weather. So if I want to check the weather, go to flight plan. We can cursor right down to our last fix here. We can see our weather at destination is winds are 010, 12 knots, just scattered cloud, 21 degrees, 1021 on the altimeter. So it looks pretty good. So it is VFR, but we'll do the approach anyway. And we're direct to Olive now. So anytime we get cleared for the approach now, since we're already direct to Olval, we can activate the approach. And we should get a top of descent once we do that. So let's just say we've been cleared for the approach via the Olval transition. So if I go to procedure and we activate the approach, now you can see it makes the approach active, and we have a top of descent, and you can see 4,400 feet is our altitude that we're looking to hit that first restriction at Vigor. And I'll set 2,000. As my altitude, because that's where we're going to want to intercept the glide slope. And so that's set, and then I can activate VNAV, and then we're ready to do our descent anytime we hit that top of descent point. So I'll check in with you just as we hit the top of descent point, and then we'll continue on the approach. I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, we're coming up to the top of descent. You can see the island of Okinawa in the distance there. The airport is just right here. And we're going to hit the top of descent, and we're going to go down to our first altitude of 4,400 feet. V-path is armed, and we have 42,000 feet set for our final altitude of intercepting the glide slope. So let's just see how it does for the approach here. Then once we get inbound to DG, we'll arm the approach, and then it should make the transition to the ILS. So we'll get our landing light on, and we have our altimeter 1021 set. Starting our descent, we'll bring the power back a little bit just to keep our speed about 160. And off we go. And this should do a great job of flying the arc there. You can see the airport just right there. another airport. There's quite a few airports on this island. I think there's a big airbase just up here too. Okay, so we're intercepting the arc. Bring the power back just a little bit more. This does a great job of flying the arc for the approach. And what I'm going to do too, I'll just throw in the VOR, just so we have a reference there as well. So the VOR frequency is 16.5. I'll put that in nav 2. And that's November Hotel Charlie, so that's the VOR. We can put that on bearing 2. There we go. You can see now we're on the 15-mile arc. VOR is just off to our left there. Okay, so it's going to take us a ways to fly this arc, so I will check in with you as we get closer to our turn to final. I'll see you there in a few minutes. Okay, we're just coming up to our first waypoint, Vigor at 4,400 feet, and that's working out pretty well. And then I think our next waypoint restriction is going to be DG at 2,000. So we'll probably level off here for a little bit, and we'll get another top of descent. Oh no, it's working, continuing on down, so that looks good, and you can see 2,000 now is our next altitude. And just looking at the chart, I think I could probably, looks like the glide path interception point is at Nation, which is 1,300. So that might be a better altitude to put in just to keep our descent going in case we need to, as we arm the approach when we make the turn here. So you can see the airport off in the distance there. Go ahead and make the turn into final here. Okay, so we're going to hit DG at 2,000 feet. And we're rolling on final. We have the ILS 110.3. It's identified. India Oscar Kilo. I'm going to arm the approach. So we have glide slope armed and localizer armed as well. So it should make the switch at some point here. Start bringing the speed back a little bit. You can see we're lined up with the runway. Some air traffic just going across this overhead there. Apparently there's supposed to be another parallel runway out here in the water. We're going for the main runway on the right hand side here. So 1,000 feet to go to 1,300. But we should possibly level off here at 2,000 feet. And level off. I'll let the speed lead off a little bit there. Okay, so let's get our fuel pumps on. Landing lights on. Speed's coming back. We got localizer is captured, and we switched over to localizer nav 1 for the localizer approach. And there's our glide slope coming in, and glide slope is armed, so it's looking pretty good for transitioning to the ILS. They've done a great job with this NXI for doing these approaches, that's for sure. You can see some traffic just ahead of us there. So glide slope coming in, I'm going to put the gear down. Speed bleed back a little bit, and we'll get our first notch of flap below 136. And we'll go approach flap. Glide slope's captured. Pretty built up in this part of the island. Not sure if that other runway is actually could be used right now. So gear is down, flaps are at approach, pumps are on, lights are good. Everything looks good. Our missed approach altitude is 2,000 feet, so since the glide slope's captured, I'll set that in case we need it. Let the speed bleed off a little bit more. Okay, there's 1,000 feet. This approach altitude is set. Speed's coming back. Yeah, I'm not sure that other runway would be very useful. Almost looks like a sandbar. Okay, I'm going to disconnect the autopilot, put in the land flap. Bit of power, keep the speed up to 110. Or sorry, 100 knots. A little bit low. And I think we're going to park over to the left side as general aviation. Right side is the main airport terminal. Speed's good, a little bit of power. To Okinawa. Oh, looks like there's a plane still clearing on the runway ahead of us there. So I'll make the first left. Your landing light off, taxi light on, or strobe light off. Retract the flaps. And I'll just park her straight ahead. Well, that was a beautiful trip. We got to depart Macau, great weather, got to fly over Hong Kong. And the only problem is with this part of the world, there's not much for the scenery. Japan should be a little bit better. It's a little bit nicer here, but still not the greatest scenery. But as we get further up the Japanese islands, especially up towards Tokyo, the scenery is amazing up there. I've done a few flights up there, so it should be a lot of fun. Okay, just park her here, set the parking brake. Still got lots of gas left, probably about 8 gallons a side. Get our pumps off, get our taxi light off, and turn the engines off. Shut off our nav light. And that's it. Welcome to Okinawa. I think it was a pretty good trip today. Hope you enjoyed today's video. It was good to get back in the cockpit after fixing my computer for the last week or so. And but I think everything's up and running pretty good. I noticed a few little idiosyncrasies there with my setup. I'm going to have to fix a few things, I think. Anyway, thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to see more of this series or other videos I do, like my tutorial videos using the NXI, make sure you subscribe to the channel and sign up for notifications, and you'll see the next time I put out a video. So again, thanks for joining me. It was a pleasure having you on the flight today, and we'll see you next time. Bandit out.